Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Gillette Pozos, and here with me is
Omar Pozos. What is up, our VGFN fam? How are you guys doing today? How are you, Ness?
you know what? Honestly, I'm feeling great. Like, I feel like,
that's a good word.
You know I shared this on Instagram recently too. I feel like just my energy has really kicked in tremendously lately. Of like now, you pointed it out this morning. You're like, you've been waking up a little bit earlier
you're
now.
Scaring me.
You're like. But like I'm waking up more around like 6:30 without an alarm, just feeling like energized, ready to go. And it's like I wake up, I'm like, all right, let's do things. I'm ready. Let's go. And it's such a good feeling because I mean, a year ago I was like waking up with my alarm, probably hitting snooze, drinking coffee right away, feeling like just super tired about how much coffee I was drinking and how much I was sleeping. And it was terrible. And now I'm like, I feel good. Like I just feel like a energetic, functioning human being.
Well, welcome back, Ness.
Yeah.
Glad to have you.
But it's really cool, honestly, to see like truly the effects of the work that we do with hormone health, with resetting the metabolism, and really experiencing it firsthand this last year has been really, really exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love it. And I mean, obviously, seeing it firsthand of how, like you said, like, sure, we go to bed early, but now you're waking up with just more like more pep in your step.
I mean, a year ago, I was sleeping like 10, 11 hours a night and still exhausted. And now I'm,
I thought
doing
it was
like
me
a normal...
that was doing that to you, but I'm glad it's not.
No, I mean, now I'm sleeping 8, sometimes 9, but more of like around 8 hours a night typically. And I feel great. I feel awesome.
I love it.
No caffeine. And it's just, life is good.
Very good. Glad to hear that, babe.
Honestly, it's like I never thought I'd be here. You think about like a year ago, I remember I would make jokes of like, I've been drinking caffeine since I was in 7th grade, and I can count on my hand like two times that I didn't have caffeine that day, and it was like horrible, just one of the worst days ever.
Listen, I'm always gonna blame you for my new Starbucks addiction and habit that I picked up. I'm like, that was on you, but we've been great. I mean, I've been kind of dialing things back a little bit myself, and I think we're on to great 2023 for us too.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
excited.
I want to talk a little bit today about how everybody can really make this a great year for them as well. And, no matter where you're starting from, no matter where you are currently, I want to talk about just like what you can do starting today. And if you do these 5 things for the next 90 days, like you are going to realize that you are just a different person come summertime, really is what we're talking about here.
Summertime. Should I just do a little solo right quick for the people?
Yeah, I think the people would love that. But, it's one of those things, too. We were just talking about this before we hit record of like, these are a lot of things, they're not specific to health and fitness. They're really about just leveling yourself up as a human being.
Yeah.
And these are things that I think we've picked up on just from, putting ourselves into rooms with really high performing people. We've spent, I believe, I need to do the math, but probably close to $150K in mentorship in the last year and a half.
Man, I take that deep breath and I'm like, oh my God, that's so much money. But that's really what it takes. Like you got to put, yourself out there. You got to put, you have to put a line in the sand and like be that person that you want to become and put a stake in the game for it to count, right? For it to for you to really pay attention to things that are going on.
Yeah. And I know, it might not be feasible for everybody in the world to be doing that. So that's where it's like, I want to share some actionable things that people can do for free from listening to this podcast.
Yeah. And I think or at least for me, everything I've seen, it's always a work in progress. Like you're never going to be 100% on every single one of these areas. It's going to be one area kind of, goes to 80% while the other one goes to 90. And it's a back and forth. It's that shift because at the end of the day, you want to have a little bit of balance as well. But you're right. I think these 5 things are really what I've also seen in those high performing, high achieving, just successful people. And it all goes back to some of these things here.
Yeah, well, let's dive into it. We've been teasing it here for a little while. But number 1 is manage your time. Sounds really simple, and a lot of people are like, yeah, okay, that's not like a huge secret. But let's talk about like what that actually means, because so many people are overwhelmed. Like I feel like that is just the standard state of being for so many people. They just feel overwhelmed constantly. They're going into Sunday with the Sunday scaries. They're coming in Monday with like the Monday, what is it? Like the Monday
blues?
Monday blues. I don't know.
I think we just made something up.
Yeah, they got the Monday blues, and you know what? It's just like really carrying through the week until like finally Friday comes and they're like, woo, Friday, and then the weekend, and then they have like 2 days out of the week where they feel like a happy human being. And the reality is, so many people are overwhelmed because they're not organized with their time. And I don't mean organized in the sense of like being just hyper planning every single thing into your life, because I think part of organization and part of managing your time is also scheduling in that downtime too. So if we don't ever have downtime and we also aren't scheduling in when we're going to like do the things that move the needle forward, we're going to feel overwhelmed all the time. So, I mean, I think the first one when it comes to managing your time is a lot of people can really work on just waking up a tiny bit earlier, like shifting your wake up time just that little bit back, you know, as long as you are getting enough sleep, because sleep is number one, but shifting your wake up time back a little bit, and you can take control of your day by taking control of your morning. Yeah. That's huge. Another thing is really creating a to-do list. I know this is something that I've always been a big fan of to-do lists, but I used to really mess it up, do it completely the wrong way, where I would just put everything I thought I possibly needed to do or wanted to do or could do all on my to-do list. And it was just like this huge, lengthy, long list that I was constantly feeling like I needed to chip away at, but it just constantly felt like it was getting longer. I don't know if you ever felt that way. I feel like that's more of like a me thing, but
you know, I've never been a big to-do list person. I always just kind of would fly by the seat of my pants, like, yeah, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and keep it all in my head. And then I realized it was giving me a shit ton of anxiety, and I was like, oh my god, why can't I sleep at night with, you know, or why am I thinking about work when I'm trying to go to bed? It's like, oh well, maybe because I need to get those thoughts,
that's why I put notepads on our bedside tables.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, so I mean, there's really two types of people here. It's like you're the Omar who just keeps your running to-do list in your head and never actually gets it out on paper. And so like you're expending so much mental energy thinking about all the things you have to do. Or you're like me, who you're like, oh, I love to-do lists. That it's definitely a part of my nature, but your to-do lists are way too long. They're not actually organized, and they're not actually structured in a way that helps you have success. So, you know, that's where I'm a big fan. I've talked about this before, and I may need to do like an entire podcast episode dedicated to it. So, I mean, let me know if you guys are interested in something like that. But I'm a big fan of the 3x3 system, having a big 3 for the week, having a big 3 for each day, really focusing on those big 3 items that actually move the needle forward. Because it's usually, if we take a step back, it's just a couple of things that actually are the things that are going to push you forward, push your projects forward, and just make a difference on your life.
But really without overwhelming you along the way.
Yep. And, you know, along those same lines, we need to set deadlines. I think this one is huge. If you don't have any external accountability on the things you're trying to achieve, you're probably not ever going to achieve them. And that's where it's like that's why we've invested so much money in coaching and mentorship across every domain of our life, from our health and fitness to our mindset to business, all these different things, because having external accountability to help you set deadlines and help you get clear on what it is you need to achieve is so important.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the last part of that is actually sticking to your schedule. So if you are creating a schedule, are you actually sticking to it? Because that's a key part. You know, it's not going to help you if you have it, if you're not actually following it. And if you're not able to follow it, then that's a different question. You need to start to peel the onion a little bit. Ask yourself, why can't I stick to this schedule? What here is preventing me from following through on the things I'm trying to do?
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, it always goes back to, I know it sounds super counterintuitive, but having structure, having organization, having a to-do list or something along those lines gives me freedom. Because think of it as like almost like a budget when it comes to money, right? Like knowing that you've allotted yourself, I don't know, $300 to fun, whatever that might be, like, you know that you can do whatever you want with those $300, and it just gives you so much freedom, as opposed to if you're like, I don't know, should I spend money on this? Should I not? Should I, you know, instead invest in, I don't know, a mentorship program? Should I do this? Like, it just gives you so much like confusion and anxiety and chaos, but knowing like that you've allotted a certain amount of time or whatever that is towards helping you do the things that you need to do, that's what gives you the biggest freedom, because it just allows you to, you know, be present and focus on the things that you are doing, right?
Exactly. Well, then let's move on to number 2. Number 2 of these things that you should do for the next 90 days to become unrecognizable by summertime is focus on one thing. this one is really, really hard for our high achievers out there, is because typically we're trying to do a million things at once. And, it's like, if you really want to get to where you want to go, you want to have that life, that body, that's just all your goals, all you want to get to, what's stopping you from getting there is likely focus and clarity. Because everybody wants the results. Everybody wants to achieve things. Everybody wants to, be the best in every domain of their life. The reason why the majority of people aren't achieving those things and they aren't the best in every domain of their life is because they're scattered. They're not actually figuring out what is the one thing I need to do in this one area and just focusing on that and moving the needle forward on that. They're spreading themselves thin. They're, instead of focusing 100% on one thing and giving 100% of their energy and effort on that one thing to actually achieve it, they're spreading themselves out and they're doing 5 different things with 20% focus on each. And you can see how that would not be very effective, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the fact that you are looking at different things and trying one thing, trying another thing, and focusing on 30 million things as opposed to doing one thing and doing it really, really well, that's what is causing you to feel overwhelmed. And that's what's causing you to have anxiety. And that's what's causing you to fall off track. And ultimately, you have to go back to square one and be like, okay, instead of doing all of these things, it's not about continuing to add things to your plate. It's about removing the things that are there and that aren't working for you to get you to your goals, whatever that might be, whether it's health and fitness, business, personal, whatever it is. But like you said, it's about doing one thing and doing, one thing really, really well.
Yeah. With our clients, we always identify what is that number one constraint? What is the one thing that if we just focus on that, it's going to have the biggest effect on our client, how they feel, their results, because doing a million things at once is not effective and it's not going to help them move forward. It might be, let's just focus on the quantity of foods that we're eating, or let's focus entirely on the quality of foods we're eating, or let's focus entirely on our sleep or on our stress. There could be one thing that you move the needle forward on that, and then suddenly everything else becomes easier.
And see, I think you just hit a great point there, Vanessa. Sometimes it takes a third person or a second person to come out and give you that third person perspective and be like, maybe let's try this, or maybe let's audit your life a little bit and do this. But it's really hard for you, if you don't have the right tools or the right knowledge, for you to step back and be like, okay, what am I doing that isn't helping? And what do I need to do that actually is going to help? But again, it maybe at times it just comes back to having somebody in your corner that has more knowledge than you, that has done the things that you want to do, or has taken people through the things that you want to do, right? When it comes to nutrition and fitness, for us, it's obviously the coaching. It takes the guesswork out of the equation. It lets you focus on one thing as opposed to doing 30 million things and then feeling overwhelmed and then never actually achieving the things that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times we have a client who comes to us and, they're very educated, like they've listened to the podcast or they've just done a lot of research themselves and they know a lot of things. They come to us and they're like, I've already identified that I need to do this. I have this wrong. And they're expecting us to be like, all right, you need to do all of these things, all of them at once. You need to get super restrictive with your diet, cut out all these foods, start doing all this exercise. They're expecting to have this humongous shift. And then, we might have them come in and after doing our metabolic assessment, maybe we see that it's actually just one little thing that really needs to be tweaked. And we tweak that one thing and it's like everything else just kind of falls in place. Because when you nail the one thing that is actually going to be super effective, it makes everything else easier and it makes everything else just fall into place without so much struggle. So focus on the one thing that you need to do to get results and just stay hyper just focused and obsessed with completing that one thing and let everything else just go to the wayside.
Yeah, I love it.
So number 3 is make gradual improvements. People don't love that word gradual. They were like, I want to change everything at once.
And I mean, that just goes back to what you were just saying. It's not about changing every single little thing and overhauling your life and making a brand new lifestyle for you. It's about doing little things each and every day that's getting you to where you want to go. It's about taking things, like you said, doing the one thing, but doing it really, really well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Oh, I've never heard that one before.
You've never heard that one?
No, I haven't. I've always, I was going to say something think about when you're learning to walk. Like you can't start by being a cross country runner, right? Because you don't even know how to crawl, and then it kind of goes on there. But I like the elephant thing, I guess.
No, actually, I like your analogy, and I want to go down that path a little bit more because children, like little kids, are so good at this because they, like subconsciously, they don't even recognize it consciously, but they know that they have so many things to grow in, so many things, opportunities like to just better themselves, and they're working on that 1%. You know, the little baby sees their parents running around and like, hey, I want to be able to do that too. So now they're just working on trying to stand up. They know they have to start with that step before they can run.
Yeah.
And as adults, we often forget this. We have egos. We think that we should be able to do everything, and we're embarrassed if we feel like we need to work on certain areas of ourselves. But allowing yourself to just feel embarrassed about things is going to hold you back. You have to just put your ego aside and recognize that it's okay to have things to work on. In fact, it's amazing to have things to work on because that means you have opportunity to level up as a human being. But you can't become that level 10 human with level 1 habits. So it's got to start with focusing on just making gradual little improvements. Start by just tracking one meal. If you've never tracked before, you don't have to track all of your food. Track one meal. Work on that. Start by doing one workout. You're not consistent with working out. Don't jump into 3 times a week classes. Go to one workout and get consistent with that. You know, you're trying to work on reading more. Start by reading 1 page per day. You're trying to, write a book. Start by writing 1 paragraph. Like it really is. Start by one thing. Start today. Focus on that one thing. Get 1% better day after day. And that over the course of a year just compounds tremendously. And you can become a completely different person in a very short period of time just by the 1% better every day mentality.
You know what's crazy? I think what you just said as far as the ego thing kind of slapped me in the face because I'm like literally boom. Because it's really something that it goes into everything. Like for me, like and it's silly. I think as a guy, a lot of guys are going to resonate with this. But when it comes to like lifting weights, right? Mm-hmm. If I see somebody next to me that's like doing 225 on the barbell on squats, and I'm only doing 135, I'm like, all right, we got this. Embrace the core. We got 225 on there. But that's so silly to think about it that way because again, I don't know what the guy next to me is doing. Maybe that's the only workout that he's doing, or that's the only movement that he's doing today, right? Meanwhile, the workouts that I'm doing with Aaron, by the way, are crushing my legs, and now I'm letting my ego take over, and I want to put more weight on the bar just because somebody next to me is doing it, right?
Aaron is our head training programmer, by the way.
Yeah, he's been adding some workouts for me, and I think the guy, I don't know, he might think I'm Superman or something, but I could get out of the gym.
Well,
and
I think you're Superman.
Oh, thanks, babe. But I'm literally like crawling out of there. But anyways, I think it really starts by putting your ego in check and being like, okay, if I was the only person in the world, would I still do this? And would I still approach this the way that I'm doing it now? And if you are, then great. Then that's what, that's what serves you, or that's what you want to do. But if it's not, and you're like, I would never do this in a million years if I was the last person, then don't do it at all. And I know it's hard to do, and I know it's easier said than done. But if you say it and you do it, that's kind of how you start working on that snowball compounding effect each and every day. But the ego thing, man, I'm like, it really like punched me in the stomach. I'm like, that's what it is. It comes back to ego, and it comes back to like, what is he going to say about me? What is she going to say about me? What are they going to think about me? Like I used to be this way when I was younger without kids. And now I can't even go up the stairs. Like, what is that going to do? Like what am I like, what does that say about me? But it's not about you. It's about, okay, maybe let's see what you've done in the last couple of years that's taking you to where you are now. And if you want to go back to where, the way you felt before you had kids or whatever that might look like, let's start by doing one thing really, really well and start there as opposed to trying to overhaul of your whole life, right?
One step at a time. That's the key. And I even resonate with what you're saying in the terms of like when I got back into working out in the fall after taking 6 months off to just really let my hormone health heal. I got back in there and man, it sucked when I was like, oh gosh, like I am not nearly as strong as I was 6 months ago. And that was a huge slap to my ego. And there was times where I felt embarrassed of like, oh man, I'm in the gym and now I'm like lifting such light weight and like people are probably noticing and they're judging me of like, oh my God, that's all she's lifting. And I let these voices run, and I know we all do this, and that's why so many people struggle with gym intimidation. But the reality is, everybody is thinking that way in the gym. I'm telling you, everybody from the novice of, the most novice person in there to the extremely experienced, super jacked bodybuilder, everybody is thinking about what are other people thinking of me. They're not actually thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, and they're wondering what you think of them. And so that's why we have to put our ego aside and recognize that just focus on the one little thing. It's okay if you can't lift very much today, but tomorrow, maybe you can make a small improvement. Well, maybe not tomorrow because we want to actually give ourselves time to recover, but maybe next week you can bump it up a little bit. And then the next week, maybe you can bump it up a little bit, and you just keep focusing on that little tiny improvement, and you let the time pass. You're gonna be a different person over time. The strength is gonna come. We just have to be patient and make those gradual improvements.
Yeah.
Gradual being key.
I'm going to steal this line from you here that you have. It's, minor improvements over time lead to big changes. And it's so true. And it's about, really, again, the one thing for me is gratification. I want instant gratification. I want instant results right away, right? But if we remove the ego, if we delay that gratification, and instead of saying, what can I do tomorrow, say, what can I do in a year from now? What is this going to help me do in a year from now? That has always, to me, served the biggest results for myself and what I've always tried to do when it comes to nutrition, fitness, or my own personal stuff that I'm working on.
Oh yeah. Thinking long term is a huge hack. And I can tell you the most successful people, they're not stressed about am I going to make progress in the next month or even in the next, 3 months or 6 months. They're thinking on a 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year basis. They have 3-year goals set for themselves. But I can tell you that most people, if you walked up to them and you said, what are your 3-year goals? They'd be like, oh, I don't know. Because people don't think that way. The average person doesn't think that way. So if you don't want to be average, you want to be above average, you have to start to think long term and let go of all the societal pressure to be like, you have to be better tomorrow, because that's not realistic and that's going to set you up to fail.
Yeah. And this stuff, I am telling you guys, this stuff works with money. This stuff works with relationships. This stuff works with health and fitness, your own personal goals. It's not just something that comes to nutrition and fitness. It's something that over time, that compounding effect, that compound interest, as they call it in the finance world, really adds up and makes a world of difference. And what's the analogy you always mention, Vanessa? An airplane going from LA to New York, if it deviates by 1 degree,
you make a 1 degree shift and it ends up in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. And it's the passengers on the plane are not going to be able to notice that the pilot shifted 1 degree. But when you zoom way out and you think of over the course of the whole length of the United States, a flight from LA to New York, you shift 1 degree south, it's going to end up in, a huge difference away. You're not going to be in New York, you're going to be in Washington, D.C. So it's these tiny shifts in the moment feel like you're doing nothing, but over the course of time, when you zoom way out, it can be life-changing. And I can tell you of the things that have been the most life-changing for me across all the different domains of my life have been tiny shifts. They have not been huge monumental changes. It all starts with that tiny little action.
Was that marrying me that has been the biggest amazing result in your life so far?
Yeah, that was a tiny little thing. So
that was a 10-degree deviation in a good way.
Well, let's move on then. Number 4 is look at things diagnostically. So think of it this way. How we think about things affects, or not even affects, it determines how we feel. How you think determines how you feel. And so rather than focusing on the negative of all these different situations and all these different circumstances, at the end of the day, circumstances themselves, events, these are inherently neutral. How you choose to think about it is how you feel about it. So if you look at any circumstance, you look at the fact that you haven't lost weight, even though you've been working on your nutrition, and you choose to think a thought that makes you feel negative about that situation, then that's your fault that you're feeling negative, and that negativity is going to cause you probably to not follow through on the things that are still going to ultimately lead you to lose weight. But if instead you look at things diagnostically and you ask yourself, what am I in control of? What can I do better? How can I improve things? You ask yourself those hard questions, those diagnostic, neutral questions that really put you back into that frame of control. it is absolutely going to change everything for you. It is a problem-solving mindset, and that is what's going to help you move past roadblocks and challenges and circumstances that you might potentially perceive to be negative, and actually help you move past them and make you feel better about it all.
Yeah. When I hear diagnostics, I think of like a car maintenance or like a computer being repaired. And it if you think of it that way, it's such a good just analogy to be like, okay, let me think of things like systematically. Like, okay, if I come across this challenge, what can I do? What can I be in control of? How can I improve this one problem? Boom, we resolve that problem, on to the next one, and so on and so forth. And that's how we really get to, where we want to go eventually. But it like you said, it really becomes on the human being level. It comes back to my own thoughts, my inner thoughts. Like, what are they telling about me? Like, I know for me, like, when people cut me off on the street, I'm like, what the hell? Like, that guy, this and that. And of course, very nicely. Very nicely. I'm like, oh, that guy, bless his heart, or whatever they say. But again, it's something like, all right, I can't control what somebody else is going to do, right? I can only control, the way I'm driving and what I'm doing. So that gives me, if anything, a sense of control. And it just helps me really redirect that energy into something more positive, if that makes any sense.
Oh, I think that makes total sense. And I actually really love the analogy you were using as far as like looking at things diagnostically makes you think of like cars. Mm-hmm. Because it's almost like if somebody was, they were filling up their gas tank regularly, but yet their car kept dying. And they're like getting really frustrated. Like, I freaking hate this car. It keeps dying on me. I filled up the tank earlier today, and yet it still keeps dying. And they're just getting frustrated. And because of that, they're just like, screw it, I'm selling the car. No, that doesn't seem very logical, right? The logical person would look at things diagnostically, because people probably aren't getting that emotional about something to where they're just completely like, all right, get rid of the freaking car. No, they're like, oh, okay, maybe I should like lift up the hood, look at this, look what's going on inside the car, maybe ask myself like, what am I doing wrong? Am I just like continuously not ignoring the check engine light? Like, am I just letting that go? What am I in control of? Could I take it to the maintenance repair shop and like get my car worked on? Yeah, I'm really not great with car terminology, so I'm like, that's about as much as I could do. But
getting my car worked on?
But they're really taking control. They're being neutral, and they're looking at it diagnostically so that they can actually fix the true problem, find a solution, and end up feeling better and not having to deal with that problem anymore.
Yeah.
That's literally what people do with their bodies. They're looking at it and they're like, oh, I'm doing everything right. I'm not losing weight. Like, this sucks. I'm just not capable of losing weight. Like, I might as well just give up myself and just, accept that I'm just going to feel this way for the rest of my life. And instead, if they remove the emotion, they don't look at things quite so negatively, and they just think, I'm going to look at this diagnostically here. I'm going to look under the hood and ask myself of like, what could I do better here? Oh, I'm recognizing that I'm actually not really tracking my food as closely as I think I am. I'm really just, not tracking on weekends. I'm tracking during the week. And now I'm wondering, like, why am I not losing weight? It's like, well, maybe you're actually not eating as much as you think you are. Or maybe they're not taking a step back and acknowledging that there's other symptoms that are red flags. Their check engine light is on. They're also feeling exhausted. They're also feeling really stressed, and they're not managing their stress. Like, there could be a lot of other factors at play. We have to look diagnostically if we want to improve ourselves.
And the crazy thing is, here's the deal. A car, a home, whatever, you can go out and buy a new one if you want to. A body, your thoughts that are going on in your head, your brain, you only get one. So we might as well get to the root cause of what's going on. If need be, get help from somebody else that knows what they're doing when it comes to doing this stuff. Because again, if you don't listen to those check engine lights, for lack of a better word, and you don't pay attention to those signs, you're going to drive your body into the ground, and we only get one. So we need to take care of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things of like, if we think of this actually like realistically, we were talking about earlier that we've spent over $150K in the last year on mentorship and coaching. Have we bought new cars in the last year?
No, we haven't.
You and I both drive the same, honestly, crappy cars that we drove in college because they're paid off and we don't really feel a need to buy a new car right now. Do we have the money in the bank where we could go buy nice cars right now? Yes, but that's not a priority. We recognize that investing into ourselves, into our bodies, into our mindset, into truly just people leveling us up, putting ourselves in those communities, that's going to have such a greater return on investment than buying something like a car. And a car, that can be repossessed. If I ran out of money and I couldn't pay my bills on it, that could be repossessed. And I would lose it and all the money I'd put into it is gone. But investing into myself, even if it was like I was really risky doing that, it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to really strap me for cash. This is going to stretch me. But I know that investing into myself, the gains I get from that cannot be repossessed. Yeah. If I didn't ran out of money and couldn't afford to pay the rest, and I, someone had to come and say like, sorry, you have to take away your coaching from you. I'd be like, well, at least everything I've gained up until this point, I have, and I can use this going forward to go make more money because I am the money maker. I am the one who can change my life, and physical objects can't do that. Yeah. So totally went down a tangent there, but
all that to say though, if Ford does want to send me a Ford Raptor, I will drive it. I will take it.
You would be willing to do that?
I would be willing to do that.
All right. So Ford, sponsor us.
Yeah, Ford and Jeep Wranglers.
Yeah,
please.
I would love a souped up Wrangler, but that's another story for another day. Let's move on to number 5 of these 5 things that you should do for the next 90 days if you want to just be unrecognizable come summertime. Number 5 is create a high value network. I kind of alluded to this already when I talked about, putting ourselves into those rooms with high performers. But the reality is evolution has designed human beings to get along with each other for survival, which means that you will do what you need to do to get along with the people that you are surrounding yourself with, which means you will adopt the traits and the habits and the behaviors of the people you are spending time with, of the people who are around you. Think about that for a minute. Who are you spending time with? Who are you spending time with during the day, at night, on weekends? You are adopting their habits and their behaviors and just the way that they live and think. And that can either level you up or it can bring you down. If you want to level up, you're going to have to spend a little bit less time with the people who are holding you back. And you're going to have to increase the time with those people who you want to be like. This is why community is huge and why, we go to mastermind events. We put ourselves into expensive coaching rooms. We do these types of things because we understand the value of putting ourselves in a community. And that's why we have an incredible community with our clients. And we have tons of clients who even long after they finish their journey and they've achieved all their goals and they're set for life, they stay with us oftentimes just for the community because they know that that community levels them up when maybe in their own lives with their families or their friends or like the town that they live in, they don't have access to those types of people. And they feel that pull to be a part of that, to be a part of something. It's so freaking powerful, right?
Yeah, and I think the best part about that, seriously, like genuinely speaking, I think the people that are high performers, that are doing a lot of these things that you want to do, they're the least likely to judge you. They're the least likely to say, oh, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. I think, honestly, from all of the people that we've met, every single one is always there to pull you up, to help you, to really, send you anything that might help you, put you in contact with people that can help you. But really, again, the people that are above you, that are people that are who you want to be, they're not talking crap about you. They're really eager to help you along those ways. So that's why it's so important. And it comes back down to, I think you've mentioned it, Vanessa, like there's the battery drainers and the battery chargers of types of people, right? So connecting with people that really charge your batteries and fill your cup, for a lack of a better word, it just makes life so much more enjoyable as opposed to people that are always just Debbie Downers and negative and like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm like, I don't want that energy around me because it's exhausting. And at the end of the day, it makes me doubt myself. And trust me, I already doubt myself enough. I don't need anybody else doubting me or what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very powerful thing. And that's why I want to invite our podcast listeners. I'm like, you're here, you're listening to this podcast. That means that you want to level up. It means you want to become a better person. You have goals that you are after, and you want to continue to improve. You are growth-minded. And for that reason, I want to invite you to join our Facebook group. It's called Women's Metabolism Secrets. It's linked in the show notes. Click join. That's all it takes. Start taking that tiny little step like we talked about to start to put yourself in the room with people who are also trying to level up and become better and just the best versions of themselves.
And the best part is our coaches are doing those live trainings. What is it, Wednesdays? Every single Wednesday,
every Wednesday,
right?
our coaches are in there doing live trainings.
People are just like asking so many great questions in there. Like coaches are just really able to give you better direction, give you better suggestions, and if anything, just help point you in the right direction so that you can really transform your life, maybe not in 90 days, but along the way, learn and help you get to where you want to go, as opposed to being like, I don't know what to do. Like, I need to Google this. I need to Google that. Like, having that accountability, that help, that resource there is huge.
Yeah, I really don't know of any other groups out there that provide that much like free coaching and free resources and just free education. But you know, if you're not taking advantage of that stuff, then I don't think you really truly want to better yourself. But, you know, that is really all I wanted to cover for today's episode. I really hope that this inspires somebody to take action, do these 5 things. And then I promise you in 90 days, it's going to be coming up on summertime. It's going to be warming up and you're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I feel like a different person. I have taken control of my life. I am proud of what I've already achieved. And I'm excited to continue to achieve and to continue to go after my goals. And, you know, if that sounds appealing to you, shoot me a message because I want to know that you're doing these things and I will help hold you accountable. So that is all for this week. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. We will be back next week.
Bye, you guys.